Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Hearts, and today I'll be breaking down the 11-game NBA slates we have here on DraftKings for Friday night. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, subscribe, turn that notification bell. I'll be going over my favorite spin-up plays, some mid-range plays we can look at, and some value plays we can look at to put into our lineups for tomorrow night. Once again, hit that like button, subscribe, turn that notification bell. It does truly help out my channel, and I can't thank you guys enough for all the support recently. It's been great, so hit that like button. Do appreciate it. I'll have my core play video out tomorrow morning as well, where I go more in depth on my core plays and kind of how I'm going to build my lineup going into tomorrow night. So stay tuned for that. Hit that like button. Let's get into the slate breakdown. So I know we have the 3 games going on right now. They're all kind of low scoring right now, so we'll see how those turn out at the end of the night. They all started like super late, which is super interesting. I don't know a slate that started that late in a while. It's been years since I think that's happened. But anyways, let's get into the slate breakdown. We have big news in regards to Denver that we'll get into, as you can see by the thumbnail. It's Bones Highland, but we'll get into that soon. On the Miami side, obviously the big news is going to be Hero and Bam. I think Hero's already been, he's already been ruled out, so we know the offense is going to flow through Jimmy Butler, Bam, Lowry, and Strus. If Bam's back, he was out last game. He's still questionable. He was out, so they started Jovic, 3,500. He's, one of those guys who should play 20 minutes, maybe 25, kind of in that range. I'd say even maybe closer to, I'd say safe, 17 to 25 minutes. He's a good scorer, not the best defender, so that's why he got limited towards the end of the game. 24 minutes, 3,500 is still super great value play there. Jimmy's just priced up a little too high for me. I mean, he does have some good upside, as you can see, versus Charlotte. Both times he was pretty well, did pretty good, but not much interest, especially if Bam's back in this team. I always mention Strus just because he's, pretty scoring dependent, but he could also go off for like 30 plus points hitting his threes. But yeah, if Bam's back, really not much interest in this Miami side. Lowry looks okay there in the middle, really came back down to earth the past few games. He does have a little bit of upside. Caleb Martin's also out, which is, big news because he was actually really good the past 2 games for them. A little bit more aggressive when it comes to scoring. Was rebounding the wall great, assists, blocks, because obviously Bam was out, so those rebounds had to go somewhere. And Caleb Martin really stepped up, so that's huge news if he's out. Gabe Vincent's a solid value play, 4,600, with Tyler Healer out once again. Dedmon didn't, I don't think he played, or no, he did play. He was a backup to Jovic, saw 16 minutes. Okay play. It'll be interesting to see if they start Jovic again. If they do, I'd rather go to Jovic, but if they start Dedmon, I do have more interest in Dedmon over Jovic. It just depends on who starts. Duncan, if, what's his name? Martin's out, we can look to Duncan, 3,200, to fill in a little bit more of that small forward role. Maybe they'll put in a guy like Jamal Cain or a Highsmith. We'll have to see kind of with how the injury news plays out for Miami. On to Washington. Porzingis the top 8-4. I think he looks great. If Bam's in, not really a lot of interest in Porzingis, but if Bam's out, I do like Porzingis a good amount. Past 3 games, as you can see, 55.5, 45.5, almost 50. Another great spot if Bam's out for Porzingis, even though a little bit slower of a pace in this game. Do really like Porzingis there if Bam's out. Obviously, if Bam's in, I don't like Porzingis that much. Beal would be just a contrarian play there. Did actually, pretty well when it comes to fantasy point scoring for him there. 8,200, it's an okay price for Beal. He just really hasn't had that ceiling this year playing alongside Kuzma and Porzingis. Kuzma looks okay, a little bit of a ceiling game there playing alongside those 2 guys. So really don't like any of the prices besides Porzingis if Bam's out. Morris is always, I guess, worth a tournament throw just because at 5,000, he does possess that upside to get into the low 30 fantasy points if he's hitting his shot. He's going to go out there, get some rebounds, assists. So don't hate that. Then he just priced up to that point where I guess he's an okay value play. He's very hot and cold. He's done, he's been pretty good the past few games. I don't know if you can trust that. I think there'll most likely be better value out there once we get more news tomorrow, but he looks okay. Goodwin's questionable. He's been seen about 20 minutes. His streak of, absolutely exploding off the bench is coming down. Barton's more of that, contrarian tournament play, just very scoring dependent, hasn't done well the past few games. Kispert, we'll see about 15-ish minutes. Only saw 11 in that OKC game, so not a lot of value on this side that you really feel confident in, so I don't really think you need to look to them for value. Charlotte and Cleveland, we know LaMelo is out, unfortunately. Hurt his ankle again, which sucks because it's great seeing him back. So that means Rozier, once again, we know he's going to start. He's going to be that main guy for them. like him a good amount, 7,900. Cleveland is a good defensive team, slower pace. So it just comes down to if you think Terry Rozier is going to hit his shots, I think he looks great there at 7,900. But definitely fadeable. Not like a must play with LaMelo out. Oubre's price is slowly coming up. He's been great the past few games. I don't hate it if you want to go to him. He's just kind of scoring dependent at times. He is shooting the ball a ton recently. So if you think he's going to keep that up, you can definitely go to him. Hayward is questionable, or I guess he's doubtful, so don't have to worry about him. Same thing with Dennis Smith. So I think that, interest in Rozier goes up more with Dennis Smith gone, because Dennis Smith was kind of, partially handling the ball alongside Terry Rozier and kind of was limiting him in the assist department. So Plumlee 6'1", just not on play for me. He's done great this season, but going up against those bigs on the Cleveland side, just not a lot of interest in Plumlee for me. PG Washington's turned it on the past few games. You could definitely look to him at 5,700. McDaniels, okay play there at 4,700. He's kind of all over the place. In terms of the guard who's going to fill in, it'll be interesting to see kind of the rotation they run. I'm assuming it's going to be Rozier, Oubre, Plumlee, Washington, McDaniels. That's going to be the starting five. Off the bench, they're going to Theo over Bouknight. So Theo looks like a great play there at 3,900 to be that guard off the bench. Richards should see about 15 to 20. Bouknight minutes have really come down for Theo, so I really prefer getting to Theo, and that's really it. Bryce McGowan's minutes, that was in 11:04, so excuse me, don't disregard that. Yeah, so it's really just Theo and Richards off the bench for value. Theo looks like great value right now. Cleveland side, Mitchell, Garland, Allen should be back. He's questionable, but I'm assuming he'll be back in. With the whole starting five in, I prefer getting to Mitchell just because it looks like he's kind of the alpha dog when it comes to scoring. Garland, I love Garland. He still has a pretty solid ceiling even alongside Mitchell. At those price tags, I'd just rather get two guys in better spots who have more usage and don't really have to compete. Allen would be a decent play going against Charlotte as a center, but yeah, not really anyone I love too much here on the Cleveland side if Allen's back and they have the whole starting five. There's really just not much. You could always take a shot in Kevin Love, but he's also priced up, so really don't like any of the price tags on that Cleveland side right now. Even though they're in a solid, matchup against Charlotte. Giannis 12.6. It'll be interesting to see if, news comes out where we can pay up for him. Because that right now, 12.6 is just too expensive. Drew Holiday is questionable. If he's back, 8,700. It's really just interest in those two because Bobby Portis is still priced up. If Drew's out, you could still look to, I guess, Bobby. Really, everyone's kind of just too priced up. Brooke had a huge game last game, but maybe you could look to Javon Carter at 58. It's not the best value for him, but if Drew's still out, you can definitely look to him. And if looks like Allen is probable, I guess maybe Allen would be my favorite play there at 4,900. Not too heavily involved in the offense, but if Drew's going to be out, that should leave some more usage for those guards and like Javon Carter, Grayson Allen. Connaughton's out, so yeah, you can kind of feel safe going to Grayson Allen there if he does play and if Drew's out. Otherwise, not really much interest in this team. Only in Giannis if we can pay up for him. On the other side, Philly, Embiid's coming off a fantastic game, 100 fantasy points, wild, 71 before that. Going up against a taller team, you got Giannis, you got Brook Lopez, an okay spot for Embiid. I don't think I'm going to get there. Harden's still out. So I do like it into Maxey and Harris. Prefer Harris just because he's a little bit less. Actually, I don't know. He's cheaper, but he also has to guard Giannis, so I don't like that. I think Maxey would be my favorite play there. Scoring dependent, but he's done well in that starting goal or guard spot. The price isn't the best, but if you're looking to get to someone, it'd be him or I guess Melton. Meant to have been down on him a little bit, but he's also been hurt. So, yeah, I think Melton would be my favorite, but he's not been too heavily involved in the offense. He's better just peripheral stats. So at 6K, I guess he'd be the best play. In terms of value, really don't like anyone. Shake's seen about like 10 minutes. House seen about 15. Niang is 4,100. He's going to see about 20-ish. Really don't think you need to force any of that value in Philly. So not a lot of interest there either. Orlando, do have a good amount of interest in this game. Paulo's still out. Wendell is questionable. It looks like he's probable, so that's big news. I do like him going against Vooch. Vooch doesn't play good defense as a big on the Bulls, So Wendell at that price tag, a little bit elevated, will keep his ownership down. Do really like him a good amount there. Absolutely destroyed the Bulls last year in his matchup revenge game narrative. So do like him. With him back, kind of takes the usage a little bit away from Franz and Bol. I guess Jalen Suggs would be decent, 6,100. He had a big game. It did help that, Wendell was out, so the usage went to him. But yeah, with him back, it's really just, I guess, Wendell at the top, 7,800, and then Chuma at 5,200. He'd still be in play. He'll probably start. Hasn't been the best recently, but at 5,200, he does have a little bit of upside there. Obama's priced up because he had to start. Don't really think you need to force that. You also have maybe Mo Wagner comes back. Well, who knows? But yeah, it's really just interest in Wendell. And then you can always take a dart throw on T. Ross. Has been terrible recently, but he does have upside at 3,600. Don't hate that. On the Chicago side, I do like the Chicago guys a good amount. Obviously, a great matchup going against Orlando here. DeMar is going to be the most consistent for the Bulls, but he's also very scoring dependent. So he looks decent at 8K. Zach LaVine, same thing, scoring dependent. I prefer getting to DeMar, even for that price difference of 7,000 or 700. Excuse me, I do prefer getting to DeMar. But I think they all three look great. I think my favorite would be Vooch. Going up against Wendell. Should be a revenge game narrative here for Vooch. Hasn't done well recently. 29, 15, 30. So I do like a bounce back here. 7,100 is a decent price tag for Vooch. So I do like him a good amount. Rest of the team, Pat Williams is out. You could definitely take a shot on a guy like Javonte or Derek Jones Jr. They'll probably both see around 15-ish minutes, with Javonte seeing a little bit more, but they're not really productive. It'd really only be Dragic for me as that guard off the bench for value. Kobe might be back, so if he is, it's really only would be Kobe and Dragic as that value off the bench for me on the Bulls side. Isles really dropped off in terms of production, so it's really just one of the main three Bulls guys. I think you even get up to two, and then maybe Dragic or Kobe, depending on the value you want. OKC, Memphis, SGA. If you guys follow me on Twitter, he's been an absolute beast. Probably the most consistent player this year. I mean, look at his box score; it's insane. He's still 9,900. Think it's too cheap. I just feel like one of these games he's gonna cool off. Maybe it's versus Memphis. I can see them getting blown out. Who knows? But yeah, SGA has been fantastic. Don't mind if you go to him. Been probably the best player in the league so far this year. Josh Giddey, 6,500. He got benched last game, 20 minutes. Him and Poku got pulled in that to start the second half. So I'd say that's a great price for him, but he's very, very risky. He could go out there and get benched like he did last game. Lou Dort looks decent there at 5,300. Pretty consistent player when it comes to just at least 20 plus fantasy points each game. Poku, once again, got benched in that second half, only saw 2 minutes. So it just doesn't feel great to get anyone on this team besides SGA. So kind of do with that as you will. I guess, Jalen Williams looks solid there at 4,000. He's been getting solid minutes. Kenrich Williams saw 26 because he started the second half over those guys. Same thing with JRE. He saw 13 because he started. Wiggins is starting, seeing some minutes. So it's just an absolute mess when it comes to anyone on his team besides SGA or Dort. Memphis, love Ja 10-5. Just almost maybe a little too pricey for me. Bane's still out. So Brooks will be that kind of secondary scorer, usage guy. Didn't shoot the ball well last game, but did see 37 minutes. So still like going back to him. Jaren Jackson Jr., I think he's way too cheap. I'd expect him to be limited around 25-ish minutes once again, but he's very productive when he's out there. 5 blocks. Don't really know if you can expect 5 blocks, but I'd say at least 2 or 3 a game from him. He did shoot the ball 14 times, so he's super, super aggressive. I really like taking a shot at him at 5,600, especially in this matchup against OKC. Other than that, not a ton of interest. You can always take a shot on Steven Adams. He does have some upside. That's really it. Brandon Clark had a monster game just because of some Steven Adams foul trouble, but if you want to go to him, I don't hate it, but I really just prefer getting to Jackson, Ja, Brooks, or Steven Adams, kind of the starters, and that's really it. On to Indiana. Halliburton looks fantastic, 9-2. He's been rock solid this year, just like SGA, so really like him going against Houston. Great matchup. Really like game stacking this game. I think it could be, I don't know if it'd be sneaky, but I do think it'd be a great game to game stack if you guys like game stacking. Turner, price is coming up, but he's still got a ton of upside at 7,300, so he looks great in this matchup. Buddy Hield, just a little too pricey for me. Rather get to the other two guys. Benedict Mathurin always in play just because he's very good scorer. is limited, because the minutes he's not really seen over 30. But yeah, you could definitely play him. I do like Jalen Smith a good amount here. Back-to-back games, seen at least 25 minutes. He's shooting the ball a good amount. He's a solid rebounder. Obviously, Miles Turner playing alongside of him, it does cap his rebounding a little bit. But yeah, I think he makes for a very solid play there at 5,000. I really like him. Nemhard seen about 20-ish minutes. Looks like an okay value play. Jackson's always in play, especially if one of the bigs in foul trouble. He's always super productive off the bench, so you can definitely look to him. And then McConnell, seen about 15 to 20 minutes. You can definitely punt play with him. On to Houston. KPJ talked about how he's too cheap. Almost had a triple-double. Once again, another great spot for him. Price really hasn't moved. Really like this game, as I mentioned. Sengun came out really hot in that first quarter. Really cooled off the second part of the game. Had 5 blocks, so he looks decent. Not the best price for him. Jalen Green, I think he looks great. Minutes are there. Obviously, the usage is there. So I really like him and Porter once again to kind of game stack this game. Jamari Smith, just more of that, contrarian play there for me on this side. Martin, decent value play off the bench. Should see at least 20. He's been solid. Gordon, his minutes are plummeting, or I guess his usage is. His minutes have been steady, around 25, maybe 30, but he's not really involved offensively. So don't think you need to force that. Eason, yeah, it's really just kind of the main guys for me. Porter, Jalen Green, don't mind Sengun, but I think this is a great game to stack. Moving on to the last half of the games, we got Denver. Jokic is out, Jamal Murray's out, so that means Porter, who was god awful that last game, 28 minutes, 1 of 8. We really like the bounce back opportunity here for Porter. I think he's almost a must play. Aaron Gordon's questionable. If he's back, I do like him a good amount against Dallas. 5,800. He's a little bit too cheap for all that usage. Jokic, Murray, that's just a ton of usage to go around. They really need people to score. Expect MPJ to step up. Aaron Gordon, I don't think you really expect him to really step up when it comes to shooting the ball. Maybe he shoots it like around 12 times in this game. But I like Bruce Brown as well. Going to carry more of that point guardish, shooting guard roles. So I think he's way too cheap there at 5,400. And Bolden's Highlands, obviously going to be the lock of the day. He should see, hopefully he starts, but even in limited amount of minutes, he can go off. But I think he starts, sees at least 30 minutes, and then that spot at 5,000 for Bones. Fantastic score. Really, really like him, even in this tough matchup against the Dallas defense. And then you can get to guys like, KCP if you want. DeAndre Jordan did start. He's pretty brutal. Jeff Green started as well, so I guess you can get to those guys. Jeff Green was in foul trouble, so if he's in, I do like him. Zeke saw some minutes off the bench, 26. But with Aaron Gordon back, I'm assuming they'd start Bones, KCP, Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and probably like either DeAndre Jordan and still bring Jeff Green off the bench. So I think off the bench, my favorite plays would be probably Jeff Green and Zeke. And that's really it. I really like the starting 5 of Bones, MPJ, Bruce Brown, and yeah, really like all 3 of those guys. So I'm just going to throw them in there for now. On the opposite side, I mean, Lucas should obviously smash in the spot. It's just hard paying up to him at 12.7 right now. I want to see if more value comes out. Dinwiddie just couldn't hit a shot when Luka was out. Still almost got you value at 31. So yeah, with Luka back, don't really have much interest in him. Should be a decent spot for Wood, coming off a huge game against Houston, but prices come up a bit. Don't really like him. I think Hardaway's still the only one in play for me off the bench. We still have Kleber out, Bullock, DFS, McGee should all be in, but they're all terrible. It's really just Luka if you can fit them in. Otherwise, you just look to Timmy and that's it. Boston, Tatum Brown. Tatum's been one of the most consistent guys in the NBA as well. A little too pricey for me. Prefer getting to Brown, even though he's a little scoring dependent at times. But it's just the price difference. Really hard to get to Tatum. Smart, if he's back, hopefully. Looks like a contrarian play there at 6,000. No one really plays him, but he does have some upside. Horford's been pretty solid there at 5,700, so I don't mind if you go to him. He does have a little bit of upside. Derek White had a huge game with Marcus Smart being out. If Marcus Smart's out once again, you can definitely look to Derek White at 5,400. He'd be solid. Same thing with Grant Williams. He'd be an okay play there. Prefer really just getting to White if Marcus Smart's out, and then one of the 2 stars, preferably being Jaylen Brown. Pritchard did see about 24 minutes, so you could definitely look to him if Derek White's out once again. Sam Hauser, him and Pritchard really blew out that game versus Atlanta, which really pissed me off because it screwed me on prize picks. But yeah, You can definitely, I'd prefer getting to Pritchard, but Hauser's always, I guess, a GPP dart throw play. On to New Orleans. Diane's questionable. If he's back, I prefer maybe getting to J-Val, even though it's not the best matchup. Boston does play small, so that could really screw J-Val. Yeah, I mean, Troy Murphy had a great game last game. It really just depends on if Zion's back. If he's out, do like CJ, BI a good amount. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones would both be very solid value plays. Obviously, Trey Murphy's a better shooter, but Herb Jones has more minutes, has it more, steal and block upside than compared to Trey Murphy, but they both look really good. Larry Nance is always in play. Should see at least 20 minutes pretty much every game. More if J-Val's in foul trouble, or if they go small. They could definitely go small in this type of matchup versus Boston, which means more minutes for J-Val or Larry Nance. So do have a good amount of interest in Larry Nance there. It's a solid center play. Yeah, they're closing with him as well. So J-Val just hasn't been able to close, hasn't been able to get the minutes, so don't like him that much. Chris Paul, hopefully he's back, but we'll see. If, Chris Paul's back, Devin Booker looks okay. If he's out, Devin Booker looks pretty solid as the guy to run the offense. Cam Payne's actually been pretty solid. Don't expect him to shoot 6 to 10, 9 to 17, but he does have that upside. So 6,800, he'd be okay for play for me. Bridges, they all just kind of look okay for me. They all had an amazing game versus Golden State. They're all very hot and cold. Ayton is probably still my favorite play at 6,200, even though he doesn't have a ton of upside right now. But yeah, I think Booker and Ayton are pretty much my favorite plays. If Paul's out, if Paul's back, it's pretty much, Paul is kind of just like a decent contrarian play there at 7,600. Does have that double upside when it comes to assists and points, even though he hasn't been super aggressive on the offensive end. And it'd pretty much just be Ayton for me going against this Utah team. On the Utah side, I mentioned, Damian Lee saw some minutes off the bench. Torrey Craig's kind of that value play for them. So you can go to him if you want, but not much interest. Laurie just priced up a little too much for me. Does still have some upside. Cooled down the past 3 games. Clarkson, always a tournament option just because he's, very score independent, can go off for like 30, 35 real life points. So you can always look to him. But once again, just not a lot of interest in the Utah side. No one really sticks out. Mike Conley's okay. Kelly Olynyk had a very good shooting game, got a double-double. A little bit more aggressive than usual, maybe because his Laurie wasn't shooting the ball well. So, as I say, with the bigs, him and Vanderbilt are always in play if they can stay out of foul trouble. Prefer again to Kelly just because he's a better shooter, better scorer. But really, once again, my only interest is in guys like Sexton or Beasley off the bench. Beasley's been better of recently, so you can go to them, but that's really it. Horton Tucker did see some, 14 minutes, but yeah, not a lot of interest in this Utah side. Moving on to the Knicks versus Golden State. Great matchup for Randall. He's been great recently. It's just, I don't know. I feel like Golden State's defense is going to figure it out where they're going to, force Randall to, they're going to put Draymond on him, and I just see both of them getting teed up and thrown out of the game. So, solid price tag, great matchup. I just don't know if I can trust them going against Draymond. I just feel like they're going to go both get in a fight. I do like Brunson a good amount here. He's been very solid the past 4 games. I love the matchup against Steph. We know Steph can't guard for the life of him, and going against guards who are super aggressive like Brunson, who like to drive, like to go for mid-ranges. Really like him at that price point. I really like RJ Barrett at this price point. He's been brutal recently. 4 points, 18, 11, 6, 27, 19. Hasn't been shooting well. As I say, I like buying low on guys who haven't been playing well. Prime candidate here going against one of the worst defenses in the league right now. Really like both him and Barrett. Hartenstein just priced up too expensive for me. Mitchell might be back. He's doubtful, but I guess you can go to Hartenstein. He just really hasn't flashed that upside recently. Quickly seen a decent amount of minutes off the bench, so you can definitely go to him. He looks very solid there, 4,400. Obi seen about 20 minutes. Cam, he's starting, but I guess him and Quickly would be my favorite plays off the bench, and that's really it. Yeah, it's pretty much him and Quickly, or is Barrett and Brunson for me. Golden State, Steph coming off a monster game last game. Just a little too pricey for me, but he, obviously has that upside, 50 real life points. Wiggins would be my second favorite play on this side. Hasn't been doing well recently. You can buy low on him. Poole and Draymond, I guess they're always tournament options, but you really need those kind of star players to be out for one of them to do well. Clay, tournament option, hasn't been doing great at all either. So yeah, not much interest on this Golden State side besides, I guess, Steph or Wiggins, maybe taking a dart throw on Clay, and that's really it. On to Detroit and LA. Ivy looks decent, 6,400. Cade's still out. Prefer getting to Bogdan. His price dropped down even cheaper. Not sure why. He does have some upside into the 40 fantasy point range. So really like him at 5,800. Stewart's still out. They're going to start Bagley and Bay. Bagley, 4,700. I think that's too cheap there. We'll see how many minutes he gets tonight. It's going against the Clippers. Obviously not the best matchup, but you can definitely look to him at 4,700. He's a starter. Should see at least 25 minutes. That's a little too cheap there. Hayes, Burks. It looks like everyone's a little bit too cheap on this Detroit side going against the Lakers. So I do have a good amount of interest in all these guys. Burks, Hayes, Bagley, Sadiq Bey. It just kind of depends on how the minutes roll tonight. So we'll have to wait for tomorrow to kind of get more in depth in that. And then the last game, we got the Lakers. We got LeBron is questionable. We'll see if he plays. We'll keep an eye on that. Anthony Davis is probable. Great matchup. Solid price for him. So I do have a good amount of interest in him. If LeBron's back, obviously Russell's out of play. If LeBron's still out, Russell looks pretty solid there. Lonnie would be more of that secondary score, so he looks decent, 5,200. But they do have Schroeder coming back. If he's good to go, I really love Dennis Schroeder. He's a very solid point per minute guy. Should be able to handle this offense along AD if he starts, which I assume he will. So he'll definitely eat up some usage of Lonnie Walker. I don't think Reeves or Nunn. I don't think Nunn's going to crack the rotation with Schroeder back. I think it's going to eat up some of Pat Bev's minutes too. So really, only people I like on the Lakers, if it's everyone's in besides LeBron, is going to be Anthony Davis, Russ, and Schroeder. And that's really it. So I have to wait on that LeBron news. But yeah, right now, really like Dennis Schroeder too as well. So these are kind of the building blocks right now. Really want to load up on those Denver guys, even though it's a tough matchup. Love Schroeder coming back if he's not on a minutes limits. Really love AD. Love, obviously, I mentioned the Denver guys, and love taking that shot on Jaren Jackson Jr. So there's a lot of good spots for tomorrow's slate. It's going to be a big one, obviously 11 games. Going to be a ton of crazy news. So keep updated with me on Twitter, HeartDFS. Like the video, and I'll see you guys in the core play video tomorrow morning.